Welcome back to Steve Robb Reviews. This is part 2 of my how to wire up a three-way switch. This is a power distribution switch from my generator to one outlet in my cabin. I got an off-grid cabin up in Northern Ontario, and I want to be able to make this switch either run off my generator when I want or the power inverter. And I've just got a switch, so it's got position 1, it'll be generator, position in the middle will be 0, which is no current flow at all, and position 2, which would be power from my power inverter. And it's all to power one switch. Now, if you can just envision, I have a block wall. I've got the wiring already intact, so all I have to do is just splice into it. I'm going to show you how I did it. Now, the wiring diagram that you get from the supplier, well, I'll tell you something. I'll put the response up because I mentioned the last video about me sending an email to the supplier, and all this really is take another look at the diagram. Everything is very easy to explain, and good luck, because when it comes down to it, if you're not an electrician, it's very hard to get a lot of these diagrams, figured out. But once you got it figured out, it is quite simple. Like, I could wire this up again, no problem. But it takes a little bit of trial and error, and having a multimeter with a, just so you could check continuity between different terminals, sure helps. Let's get over to the bench here. I'm going to show you what I got, and I tested it all out, and I'm going to show you the results. So let's get over here and let's take a look what I got. So I made the box, and there it is right there, and there's the 3-position switch. So you can see on number 1 is from the generator, the feed coming in from the generator, and position number 2 is from the inverter, and it's all to power one receptacle switch. Now, when you take a look in there, I got every wire labeled so there's no mistakes, right? And I got everything all connected here. So this one here would be the feed. Now, I'm using a 12-volt power supply just to test everything out before I go to the 120-volt up in my cabin. But this would just be your black and your white, and on this side over here, I've got the outlet out, so that's going to my receptacle or the outlet, and inverter in. So I got the power supply. I'm using the green and the blue, which would be your neutral and your hot, and outlet out. Now, the outlet out is just on this one here is just the hot wire and the neutral going to the receptacle. So the whole idea is, when I have it in this position here, anything that comes from the generator is going to power the receptacle. In the middle is nothing, and when you turn it over to this side, it disconnects the generator. Even if you have the generator running, nothing happens, and it powers the receptacle off of the inverter. So, yeah, the wiring diagram itself, I'm going to go over just a bit at the end here, because there's a couple of things that they missed out that a lot of people aren't going to realize what they have to do. But that's pretty much it right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set you up here. I'll turn on the power supply, and I'll show you exactly the results you should get. And you can just do this with any other kind of power supply you have, but you should actually test it all out first before you actually start plugging stuff in. And then I'll show you what it looks like when it's all covered up and I got all the screws in and everything, because I made it so that this here goes on here, 3 fasteners here, 3 fasteners here, so you could always take it off once it's mounted. And then this is going to go in the block wall. I'll drill a hole through here, drill a hole through here into the block wall, and that's where it's going to be positioned, in that position there. Now, I'm using these particular lever nut connectors, which makes everything so easy to work on. And you you just feed your wire into them and then just snap them down, and you don't have to have, you know, wire ties and everything else. I mean, I think I'm going to try it. This is the first time I'm using it on high voltage system. Well, usually I just use it for 12 volt, but I'm going to do it on 120 volt, and we'll see how it goes. So let's turn the power supply on, and I'll show you how this actually works. Okay, so the whole idea behind this is I got these two leads here from the power supply, powering it up with 12 volts, and it is substituting the generator feed. Then I have the other two leads on the other side, and they're substituting inverter feed. So I got two power feeds, one power feed from here, one power feed in from there. So I got it in the 0 position, and you can see I have 0. So just for instance, you come out and you want to, now I would suggest you always have the power off before you start turning this switch, but this is low voltage and there's no load, so I wouldn't worry about it. But so there you go right there. Got the power coming out, and that is, if you had the generator running, it would power this receptacle. And then you turn it to 0, and of course no current flow, nothing happens. Then you turn it to the inverter, and you've got power coming in here and power going to your receptacle. And that's about it right there. I found it wasn't too bad of a job. You just got to take your time. The diagrams are right, except for one thing, and I'll point that out right now. Okay, so there's the box there, all closed up, ready for when I take it up north. And I'll just show you, there's where the two feeds will come in. One will be the from the power inverter, and one will be out to the kitchen receptacle. And before we get to the diagrams here, I'll just show you. Now I'm going to drill a hole through here and here when I get up there, and mount it on the back side. Now you can see there's a spot here to fit some 14.2 in there, and that's from the generator. So I learned my lesson about putting, this is pine, putting any wood against a block wall, because it rots out fast. So I just put a couple of pieces of foam there, and that'll give a little bit of an air gap. So that's it right there. So this is the diagrams they give you that's online. And you know, when I first looked at this, and this is what came in the box, and I thought, wow, where do I start? So I did draw a little bit of a different diagram when I realized, okay, so when you take a look at your 4 contact points, 4 on this side, 4 on this side, I realized that here's a hot to the receptacle. Here's another hot to the receptacle. And then down the bottom, you got a neutral to the receptacle. You got a neutral to the receptacle. One off of the switch number position 1 and switch number position 2. The way they show in the diagram, how do you get your feed out to your receptacle? Because you have to actually make a jumper. So you got these two here, join the two neutrals together and join the two hots. Because if you don't, how are you going to get the feed out? Because when they show you this diagram with all these pins, and you could see, you know, position 1, you've got 2 and 1, and 6 and 5, right? So you only got 8 positions, but you need actually to make a jumper to make it go out. So this is the 2 neutrals that you're left with, and you got the 2 hots up here. So you have to actually join them together to get it to go out, and add a piece of wire, one for one side and one for the other side, so you can actually have power going out to your receptacle or whatever it is that you're using to attach with. So that's the only part that I found that was different. And besides that, yeah, the diagram is pretty good that they give you, but you'll eventually figure it out that if you just go by their diagram, you're going to wire this thing up and you're not going to have no feeds going out. So you have to actually make a feed going out yourself, which is different than the diagram. And when you're looking at this here, I mean, they responded back and told me just to double check this and you can figure it all out. Yeah, right. You have to actually start doing it, then you can figure it out. Well, I thought this was a fun little adventure, and I just I'd let you know all the drawings and instructions and everything else I put in the Ziploc bag. And when I open this and wire it all up in the future, I'll show you that on the channel when it's all installed and how it works. But yeah, this will go inside the box. But if I can do this, you know, and I'm not trained in any kind of electrical field at all, I think most other people could too. But what really helped me in figuring out this was I had to get some paper and a pencil and start drawing. I started off at the receptacle and working my way back. How am I going to get this, you know, from position 1 to position 2? How am I going to feed all these wires back? If you just follow the instructions for the pinouts for the terminals and just attach all your wires, bring all your wires out, and then look at your drawing and work your way back. And that's what I did. And that's when I first realized, where do I get the power feed and the neutral, you know, from the from position 1 to position 2. They don't tell you you need a jumper to go across, you know, from both sides. So you're going to need 2 extra pieces of wire. In my case, it's a neutral and a hot wire. And if you're thinking about, what about all the grounds? Well, after I get everything all up there, I'll take all the grounds and attach them all together, because you got to have a ground as well. And I didn't show anything about grounds in there because, well, the grounds are all separate, and I'll attach all the grounds together. So thanks for joining me here today. If you have any questions, I'm not too sure I could answer them any much than I've shown, but you could use this switch in a lot of other areas besides what I'm doing. You could use it for a forward reverse switch or 2 different circuits. Like, there's a lot of people I know have, take for instance, they got one 15 amp line and they can't run 2 things off it at the same time. But if you could select either one or the other, so you can have 2 lines off of the same feed even, but 2 different lines, so that you're not overloading the system on whatever you're operating. So I could think of a whole bunch of different things that I could use one of these switches on, and I'll think in the future you may see me do another one of these for a different project. So thanks for joining me here today. Come back again. If you haven't seen this channel before, you're welcome to subscribe and follow along what I do and have a little bit of fun along the way too. Cheers.